The Snowball, Warren Buffett and the Business of Life, by Alice Schroeder. This video is made for educational purposes only. This book is about Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors in the world. It tells the story of his life, how he built his business empire, and the values that guided him along the way. Through his journey, we learn about the importance of patience, hard work, and making smart decisions for the long term. Warren Buffett sat in his Omaha office in 2003, telling Alice Schroeder about his life, his family, and the lessons he'd learned. He spoke of his early years, the snowball he rolled as a boy, and how it showed his drive to build something lasting. He shared stories of his first investments, his partnership with Charlie Munger, and the mistakes that shaped him. He talked about patience, discipline, and the power of compounding. He reflected on his journey from a small town to becoming a world-famous investor. He spoke of his humility, his family, and his belief in staying true to himself. He ended with a simple truth: the greatest wealth is the impact you leave behind. In 1995, at Sun Valley, Buffett moved through the crowd with his usual charm, hiding a complex life. He mingled with stars and moguls, enjoying the free gifts and notes from Herbert Allen, the event's host. But beneath the surface, tension grew. New tech leaders clashed with tradition, and Buffett watched the tech bubble grow. He saw the market rise, but real businesses struggled. He decided to speak out, warning against greed and overconfidence. He showed slides of the Dow, explained how the market had not kept up with growth, and called the boom a greed factor. He finished with a joke, light on a heavy subject. In 1999, Buffett stood at Sun Valley, the tech boom in full swing. He saw the market driven by hype, not real growth. He decided to speak out, warning people to be careful. It cost him his reputation and his standing with tech leaders. He used humor and stories to show they were chasing ghosts. He told them the market was overinflated and the future wasn't as bright. His message was clear: the market was a bubble. The speech was a turning point. He had always been a contrarian, but now he was fighting against the tide. He had built his wealth by buying undervalued companies. Now, he was warning others not to follow the crowd. He believed in honesty and rationality, and he was willing to say what others wouldn't. The speech ended with a standing ovation, but the murmurs afterward suggested he had lost some of his influence. Buffett had spoken, and the world had heard. He had made his point, and now he had to wait and see if people would listen. Buffett's early life was shaped by struggle and sacrifice. His father, Howard, worked hard to provide for the family, but the depression left them in constant fear. Layla, his mother, took on extra jobs and made tough choices to keep the family going. She was driven to escape her own troubled past, but her stress often fell on the children. Warren, the middle child, spent his time alone, finding comfort in numbers and patterns. He raced marbles, counted license plates, and calculated lifespans, his mind always working. School gave him new friends, but he stayed quiet, struggling to fit in. His mother's criticism and the family's financial worries left him feeling isolated. Yet, even as a child, Warren showed a sharp mind and a deep curiosity about the world. These early challenges helped shape the man he would become. Warren Buffett loved numbers and wanted to understand the world. At school, he competed in spelling bees and math races, always winning. His teachers noticed his talent and let him skip grades. He memorized facts, like state capitals and populations, and even collected things he thought had value. Once, he got a bad illness and spent weeks in a hospital where he found comfort and started collecting nuns' fingerprints. His grandfather took him to a baseball game, and he bought a book about the 1938 season, memorizing it completely. He played bridge and the cornet, though his mother criticized him. He started selling gum and soda, keeping his money in a passbook. By 10, he was making money at football games and wearing political buttons for his father's views. He grew fascinated with money and business, reading financial columns and books, setting his sights on becoming a millionaire by 35. Warren watched stock prices at his father's bank, curious about the numbers. His father took him to Wall Street, where he met Sidney Weinberg, a powerful banker. Weinberg's interest in Warren's ideas left a lasting impression. Warren imagined the stock market as a place of endless opportunity. He learned about compounding and started investing small, even with his sister. His first success taught him to trust the numbers, not the noise. When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, the world changed. His father became more extreme, seeing FDR as a threat to democracy. Howard ran for Congress, even though he hated public speaking. The family campaigned in South Omaha, meeting workers in tough conditions. Howard believed Roosevelt had caused the attack. Despite odd tactics, Howard won. The family moved to Washington, then to a big house in Virginia, a step towards something new. After moving to Washington, the Buffetts faced a tough time. Layla missed Omaha, and their daughter Doris loved the new city, but Warren struggled in school. He tried to get a job, even claimed an allergy to avoid staying. His grandfather, Ernest, sent him back to Nebraska, where he found comfort in his family's grocery store. He worked hard, learned to read trade magazines, and watched his grandfather boss around the clerks. Ernest was strict and racist, but Warren respected him. This job taught Warren the value of work, careful thinking, and paying attention to the world around him. Back in Omaha, Warren lived with his grandfather and aunt. He loved the freedom and the radio, especially Fulton Lewis Jr., who talked against foreign wars. Ernest, a Republican, believed Lewis completely. Warren missed Washington and his sisters. In Washington, he felt out of place, shy and lonely. He tried sports teams but failed. He longed for the connections he had in Omaha. One day, his uncle asked him to sell stale snacks. Warren made $100, and for the first time, he felt like a real businessman. It gave him confidence and a sense of purpose. He was still awkward and isolated, but he was learning to navigate the world on his own. Warren Buffett, still a teenager in Washington, felt out of place and lonely. He tried sports teams, but never made friends. He was shy but fearless when it came to money. He delivered newspapers, even confronting a boss to get his war bond. He made $1,000, like the book said, but his life wasn't perfect. He got into trouble, stole, and made up fake letters. His dad, a strict Republican, finally told him to choose between his bad habits or giving up his paper routes. It hurt him but made him think. Meanwhile, his dad stayed out of politics, distrusted government, and bought a farm in Nebraska. His values shaped Warren's future. Warren kept trying to fit in, but he stayed awkward. He read books, lifted weights, and dreamed of being strong. He sold extra papers after the war, saved up to visit a gym, and found joy in discipline. He still felt like an outsider, but the weights gave him purpose. He started investing, bought a farm, and tried to act like a Nebraskan. He made mistakes, but he kept learning. He read a book on people skills and started changing. Slowly, he made friends, joined a team, and became more likable. He was still a kid, but he was starting to figure out how to be successful. Warren Buffett, still a high school senior in 1946, had already made over $2,000 from delivering newspapers. He kept his money secret, and when Lou Battistone saw it, he was impressed. Warren started running small businesses, like selling used golf balls and car buffing. He even tried to install pinball machines in barbershops, making a few bucks each night. He learned how money could work for you if you knew how to use it. He also learned to work with people, like barbers, who helped him grow. He messed around with shady deals and pranks, but he kept learning. By the end of high school, he had made $5,000, a big deal for a kid his age. He got into betting through his friend Bob Russell, studying race results and making tips. He lost some money, learned from it, and vowed to never chase losses. His dad had strong opinions, even voting against unions, which made Warren feel the weight of politics. He started college, not wanting to, but his dad pushed him. He struggled to fit in. But slowly, he started to understand who he was and what he needed to do. Warren wanted to lead, not just follow. He tried running a crew but gave up quickly. He wanted Chuck to join his business, but Chuck wasn't interested. Warren needed someone to talk to, someone to share his ideas. He invited Chuck to Washington, where Chuck ate everything Layla served. Warren's mom had taught him well. Chuck thought Warren was a mix of kid and genius. Warren showed off in class, memorizing everything, correcting teachers, and finishing exams early. Chuck grew tired and left. Warren missed Washington's freedom. He returned home to help his dad campaign. He delivered papers, used his borrowed Ford, and met Don Danley. They bought a broken Rolls-Royce, fixed it, painted it blue, and rented it out. Warren dressed up, acted like a chauffeur, and made a spectacle. He dated Bobby Worley, but she didn't return his feelings. He went to college, roomed with Clyde and George, studied hard, and played bridge. He pranked George with barbells, had no dates and no confidence. He wrote to Bobby, but she said no. He had one awkward date with Ann Beck. He liked the car, the parties, the jokes, but not the girls. He talked about stocks at fraternity events and became known as the Senator. He joined Young Republicans and prepared for the 1948 election. Warren's dad lost his seat in Congress. The Buffetts were crushed. Warren had planned to ride an elephant for his dad's victory. But Truman won, and Howard was thrown out. Warren felt broken. 2 months later, his uncle Frank died, leaving only government bonds. Howard wanted to break the trust to invest, ignoring Frank's warnings. The winter was brutal. Howard's career crumbled. Warren, heartbroken and bored, returned home, signing himself ex-Warren Buffett. He went to Nebraska, started a golf ball business, and shorted Kaiser Fraser stock. He met Bob sooner, grew closer, and decided to go to Harvard. But he got rejected. He felt. Warren and his friend Howard bought some shares in a hardware company before Warren even started college. He skipped class to go to the company's meeting and met Walter Schloss, a sharp analyst who worked for Ben Graham. Schloss impressed Warren with his tough questions and his background after the 1929 crash. Warren also met Louis Green, a tough investor who made him rethink his reliance on Graham. Warren started studying Graham's methods and learned about Geico, a company Graham's firm had invested in. He traveled to Washington to meet Geico's leader, Lorimer Davidson, who was surprised by Warren's knowledge. Warren decided to invest in Geico, seeing it as a smart bet. He sold most of his stocks to buy shares in Geico, believing in its growth. He wanted to learn from Graham, but found him distant and focused on his work. Graham had a tough life, including financial struggles and personal issues, but he rose to become a top investor. Warren admired Graham's focus and started to understand the idea of intrinsic value. He saw stocks as real assets, not just numbers. Warren Buffett, still a student at Columbia, started to see stocks as ownership in real businesses, not just numbers. He learned from Ben Graham to think about a company's true value, not just its price. He focused on GAICO, betting big on its future. He wanted to work for Graham, but was turned down because of prejudice. Back in Omaha, he tried to win over the girl he liked, but failed at first. He met Susan Thompson, who was smart and kind, but she wasn't interested. He also tried to impress Vanita Mae Brown, a confident woman from Nebraska. Vanita challenged him to grow, pushing him to be better. Warren struggled with shyness and failed dates, but he kept trying. He eventually won Susan, and they dated secretly. They grew close, and she saw through his insecurities. By Thanksgiving, they planned to marry. Warren Buffett, 21, decided to start his own brokerage in Omaha instead of New York, going against his dad and Ben Graham. He borrowed $5,000 from the bank, started Buffett Falk, and sold Geico to friends, dreaming of owning a small piece of it. He struggled to sell, often being ignored or mocked. He taught a night class, shared his ideas, but didn't promise money. He worked hard, saved money, and studied constantly, always looking for the next big chance. At 22, he analyzed stocks like coal mines and calm banks, bought some, sold them, and made some money. But he also lost money when a dividend was cut. He tried to buy a gas station with a friend, lost $2,000, and learned about customer loyalty. He hated his job, seeing it like selling pills for a doctor who gets paid per sale. He got married in April 1952, but the flood stopped him from joining the Guard. His commander let him marry. He rushed to the wedding, nervous, not wearing his glasses. The ceremony was big in Omaha. After the photos, they drank punch and ate cake. They drove to Wahoo, then Lincoln, where he bought the Omaha World Herald. They traveled the West, visited family, and had fun. Back in Omaha, he stayed in his job, still hating it, but growing closer to Susie, who made him feel loved. A few months after the Buffetts' honeymoon, Howard Buffett tried to run for Senate, but failed when the party chose someone else. He was crushed, and his future looked dark. Warren, already in New York, left Omaha to follow his dreams. He moved into a cheap apartment and started learning about investing. He studied Ben Graham's methods, but he wanted to take bigger risks. He sold his GICO shares to buy Western Insurance, thinking it was a sure thing. Warren was frugal, saving every penny, and by 25 he was already rich. He spent his time thinking about stocks and trying to impress Wall Street. His wife, Susie, was warm and lively, keeping him grounded. When a missionary interrupted her labor, she stayed calm while he talked. Warren was focused, driven, and learning fast. He saw an opportunity in cocoa, bought Rockwood, and made a big profit. He started doing his own research, visiting companies, and making smart moves. His money grew, but so did the stress at home. He was changing fast, becoming the man he wanted to be. Warren was making good money at Graham Newman but missed Omaha and his family. His wife, Susie, was struggling to care for their son, and Warren couldn't help. He sent away a helper who didn't work out and kept looking for someone right. His boss, Ben Graham, noticed how much Warren cared for Susie and gave him dance lessons, but Warren never went. He didn't want to be a partner at the firm, even though it would have made him rich. He wanted to start his own business. He moved back to Omaha, rented a house, and started Buffett Associates, a small partnership with friends and family. He invested his own money and took big risks. He was driven, focused, and ready to take control of his life. He also took care of his aunt and mother's money, investing it safely. He made rules for his business and taught his partners about the stock market. He worked hard, visited companies, and tried to be a good father and husband. He was growing, learning, and preparing for the future. Warren was 26 and determined to become a millionaire. He went back to New York to talk about his future with Graham Newman. His boss, Ben Graham, supported him even though Warren didn't want to be a partner. Warren started his own business, Buffett Associates, with friends and family. He took big risks and worked hard, managing money and visiting companies. He also helped his aunt and mom by investing their money safely. He made clear rules for his business and taught his partners about investing. He bought cheap stocks like National American Fire and controlled them through legal tricks. He made money, but he also made a big mistake by buying too many stamps. He sold them off and focused on raising money for his partnerships. By 1957, he had a fourth partnership, Daisy, with the Davises. He bought more stocks and even bought a house in Omaha, calling it Buffett's Folly. His family moved in, and Susie made their home a lively place. They started a small art gallery, and Warren met people who helped him grow his business. He was gaining respect in Omaha, even though some doubted him. Then he met Charlie Munger, who would become his closest friend and partner in investing. Warren and Susie lived quietly in Omaha, their home big but simple. Their kids were loud, the door was always open. Warren worked hard, managing over $1 million in investments and growing his network with friends like Munger. He met Roy Tolles, a sharp-minded friend, and started big projects like buying Sanborn map stock. The company made detailed maps for insurers, but its stock was cheap. Warren poured a third of his partnerships into it, convincing friends and family to join. He took a cut from some investors. He controlled enough shares to get on the board. At a meeting, he pushed to split the company's investments from its maps, but the board resisted. Warren kept buying, using new money and friends' funds. He threatened to take control unless they acted. Finally, they split the business. Warren won, showing his power and determination. At home, Susie tried to pull him out of his work, but he stayed focused. He had kids who tested his patience, but Susie handled everything. She dressed sharply, organized charity events, and managed their lives. Warren let her handle the details, trusting her. He kept working, driven by his ideas and his need to succeed. Warren's world in Omaha was shaped by the people around him, friends and family, some broken, others struggling. Susie was a steady presence, offering comfort and strength to those in need, even as she kept her own troubles private. Their lives were intertwined with others, including Black friends like Bob Gibson and Holocaust survivors like Bella Eisenberg, who trusted Susie with her deepest pain. Meanwhile, Warren's father, Howard, was consumed by fear of communism, joining the John Birch Society and drawing ridicule. Howard's cancer diagnosis in 1958 brought the family together, with Sus managing the crisis with calm and care. Warren, though distracted by his work, still found a way to shine in public, drawing admiration from those who listened to his investing wisdom. He raised money for his partnerships with relentless energy, even as critics doubted him. By 1960, his Warren Buffett fired Harry Bottle after Dempster Mill made a profit. He had to let go of someone, and it broke him. The townspeople in Beatrice were angry, thinking he was heartless. They raised money to save the plant, but he lost. It hurt him deeply. He promised never to let a town hate him again. He sold his shares to Walter Schloss, trusting him completely. Meanwhile, Warren was raising 5 kids in a chaotic home. Susie was busy with civil rights work, and the kids had to fend for themselves. He stayed focused on investing, even as his family life suffered. He was driven, but also emotionally distant. His wife loved him, but he wasn't there for his children. In 1963, Buffett had built a reputation as a smart investor. People started seeking him out. Charlie Munger, a lawyer and investor, joined Buffett's world, borrowing money to invest. He took big risks and met Rick Guerin, who quickly caught on to Buffett's methods. Munger and Guerin bought shares without consulting, causing a panic. Munger trusted his instincts, pushing his assistant to look beyond the balance sheet. Buffett and Munger were building their legacies, each in their own way. Buffett was in a cafeteria when he heard about JFK's death. The stock market crashed, and he lost money. He watched people grieve on TV, feeling distant. American Express stock dropped, and he started looking into the company. He sent someone to check if people still trusted it. They did, so he bought a lot of shares. His father was dying, and Buffett took charge of the family. He changed the will, left more to his siblings, and avoided changing his voter registration. After his father died, he grieved in silence, buying more American Express. He argued with his sister about the funeral, but kept investing. The company paid a big fine and the stock rose. Buffett kept buying, investing $13 million by 1966. He told his partners to focus on long-term value, not just diversification. He moved away from Ben Graham's strict rules. Buffett saw that Graham's method was fading and needed a new way. He started looking at companies for their future, not just their numbers. He bet big on American Express, trusting its brand. It worked, and he grew more confident. He started buying more Berkshire Hathaway, a struggling textile company. He believed in its management and kept buying, even when others said it was a bad idea. He worked hard, stayed secretive, and built trust. His focus on long-term value and strong leadership changed how he invested. He became a visionary, not just a number cruncher. He ended up working in a small, messy office in New York, at Tweedy, Brown. The firm still followed Ben Graham's old rules, but Buffett was already thinking differently. He bought Berkshire shares, hoping to buy the whole company. When the owner tried to lowball him, Buffett got angry and decided to buy it himself. He sent someone to negotiate, but it didn't work. He kept buying, got on the board, and started building something bigger. He was no longer just an investor, he was building a lasting business. Warren Buffett, now in New York, found himself in a small, messy office at Tweedy, Brown. He started buying Berkshire Hathaway shares, hoping to own the whole company. When the owner lowballed him, Buffett got angry and kept buying. He met Jack Stanton, who wanted his brother to run the company, but Buffett pushed him aside. He also met Ken Chase, a quiet man with deep knowledge of textiles. Buffett convinced Chase to run Berkshire, even though Jack and his wife tried to stop him. He got the board to elect him chairman and took over the struggling company. Later, he admitted buying Berkshire was a mistake, calling it a soggy cigar butt. Meanwhile, his father died, and the family struggled with guilt and grief. Susie took on more responsibilities, pushing Warren to focus less on money. Buffett's control over Berkshire and his family's challenges marked a turning point. He made smart investments, grew rich, and started thinking about bigger deals. He even bought a whole department store. His focus on value and long-term thinking changed everything. Warren and Charlie invested in a department store in Baltimore, buying 80% of it. They got a huge loan and planned to open new stores, but Buffett and Munger realized the idea didn't make sense. They killed the deal and focused on the Maryland store instead. Things didn't work out, and Buffett joked that everybody died. They learned that retailing was about selling goods, not just money. They found a better business through a friend and bought it for $6 million, keeping the manager in charge. Warren admired the manager's drive. Meanwhile, his wife, Susie, pushed him to slow down, but he kept working hard, even with a bad back. Susie managed the family, handling everything from friends to kids. Billy, their nephew, got caught up in the drug culture, but Susie tried to steer him back. Warren stayed focused on investing and philosophy, even as he made a big mistake with a dividend. He changed his approach, avoiding risky deals. He sold some shares and looked for new chances, eventually buying National Indemnity. The deal was fast and fair, and it changed how he ran Berkshire. Buffett had changed. He stopped chasing high-risk bets and aimed for steady, simple wins. He let his partners leave if they wanted, and stayed calm even when others did better. In 1966, the market crashed, but his fund beat the Dow by 36 points. He stayed focused, not giving in to pressure. He found new friends at Grinnell College and used his influence to push for fairness, even in tough times like the George Wallace riots. He remembered his father's stories and believed in doing what was right. He helped break down barriers in Omaha, using his power to make a difference without shouting. In 1968, he supported Humphrey over Nixon, even though he later regretted his ties to McCarthy. He kept investing in safe, profitable businesses, shutting down unprofitable parts of Berkshire. He bought more stock in companies like AT&T and blue-chip stamps, betting on their long-term strength. He grew rich, but felt out of step with the fast-changing tech world. He missed the old ways and wrote a sad letter, saying investing ideas were worse than ever. But he stayed confident, choosing what he knew best. Buffett ran his small partnership from a simple office with Gladys, who made sure he stayed focused. He found a bank called Rockford, run by a man named Gene Abegg, who had strong morals. Buffett offered less than another buyer, but Abegg chose him because he trusted his judgment. Buffett admired Abegg's honesty and started carrying the bank's special money. He made friends with a reporter named Carol Loomis, who helped him write and publish. He bought a newspaper in Omaha and dreamed of bigger influence. He met smart people like J. Rockefeller and invested in a magazine, even though it failed. He felt embarrassed for dragging others into it, but still wanted to be part of journalism. In 1969, Buffett faced a hard choice. The market was slowing, and he couldn't find good deals. He decided not to sell the partnership, even though he could have made a lot of money. His family and friends were upset, especially his wife, Susie, who struggled without his support. He helped his partners find new managers and kept working on their behalf. When the market turned around, he made a big profit. He planned to sell his shares, but wasn't sure what to do next. He stayed close to his partners even as he moved forward. Buffett and Munger tried a retail business but realized it was too hard. They sold it quickly and learned to focus on strong, growing companies. Buffett wrote about time helping great businesses but hurting weaker ones. His partnership ended, and he celebrated with a big party. He had grown rich but stayed simple. He was ready for a new chapter. In 1969, Buffett made sure his partners got their money, even though he kept the stocks. He wrote letters explaining the market was too high and that he'd grow his investments faster than any manager. Some partners were worried when the partnership ended, especially those who trusted him. He valued loyalty and family, so he kept the business going. By 1970, he controlled most of Berkshire and diversified. He planned to save Blue Chip by buying See's Candies, which he and Munger believed was worth a lot. They bought it, and Buffett threw himself into the candy business, even sending candy to friends. At home, Susie wanted more control, but Warren insisted on making all the decisions. He refused to pay for things she wanted, which upset her. One day, he got sick from too much penicillin and nearly died. Susie forced him to go to the hospital, but he stayed focused on work. Even when he was sick, he kept investing and helping others. He never slowed down, always in control, always moving forward. Warren Buffett wanted to be more than just an investor. He wanted to be a publisher. He heard rumors that Boys Town, a big Omaha charity, was wasting money. He teamed up with the Omaha Sun's editor, Paul Williams, to dig into it. They found out the place had way more money than it needed, but wasn't using it wisely. Buffett helped track down tax records that proved the truth. The story shocked people and made Buffett realize his business skills could help uncover the truth. He was proud of what he did, even though it hurt his friendships. Buffett and the reporters raced to get the story out before others. They got key evidence, like a tape of a man denying state funds. The story was bold and full of details, and it exposed a big scandal. It forced changes in how charities were run. The Sun won a big award for its work, and Buffett was happy even as he faced criticism. Buffett and Munger had always wanted to buy a newspaper. In 1971, they met Katharine Graham, the publisher of the Washington Post. They didn't get along well. She was bossy, and he found her unattractive. Their meeting was short and unimportant. Buffett left feeling nothing had changed. But it was a step toward his future plans. Buffett and Munger tried to buy the Washington Post in 1971, but Katharine Graham was tough to impress. She had taken over the paper after her husband's death, struggling with self-doubt and a difficult marriage. When the Pentagon Papers scandal hit, she had to choose whether to publish them. She trusted her team and went ahead, turning the Post into a powerful voice. Later, as Watergate unfolded, Buffett was in Omaha, buying newspapers. He got involved in the scandal, fighting for the Post's freedom. Graham, scared and unsure, reached out to Buffett, who surprised her with his honesty and charm. They became friends, and Buffett promised not to take over the paper. That night, he showed up in a borrowed tuxedo, awkward but sincere. Graham helped him feel at home. In 1973, Buffett dined with Katharine Graham, feeling out of place among politicians and journalists. He was nervous, especially when Graham gave a toast he couldn't answer. Still, he wanted to learn more about the world of media. By then, Buffett was no longer just an investor. He was building his own empire. He followed Gurdon W. Waddles, a stock picker who built wealth by buying cheap stocks and holding them. Buffett tried the same, buying companies that owned other companies. He even met Waddles in Boston, impressed by his wisdom. At the same time, he pushed to take over Wesco Financial, a savings and loan. The deal with Santa Barbara seemed too good, but Buffett hesitated. He convinced Betty Peters to meet with him, and she eventually helped him take control. Buffett used his money to buy more companies, growing Berkshire and Blue Chip. He started a reinsurance company to fund his investments. As he became richer, he also grew closer to Katharine Graham, helping her with speeches and guiding her. Their friendship deepened, and Buffett saw her as a complex, powerful woman. He wanted to join the Post board, but stayed focused on his work. He was driven, confident, and growing in every way. Warren Buffett had become a big name, and Katharine Graham, boss of the Washington Post, started to take an interest in him. He helped her with speeches, showing he could be a mentor. Their friendship grew, and he pushed her to think bigger, be more confident. She started trusting him more. Buffett wanted to join the Post board, but stayed focused on his work. He was rich, but still had a purpose. He was driven, confident, and growing in every way. In 1974, the market crashed, but Buffett's fund lost less than others. He stayed calm, buying stocks like San Jose Water and Coldwell Banker. But things got tough when National Indemnity faced big losses from fraud. The SEC started looking into Blue Chip's purchase of Wesco, suspecting fraud. Buffett and Munger were grilled by investigators, including Stanley Sporkin. They had to hand over documents, and Buffett felt under attack. The SEC doubted their motives, even though they acted fairly. The investigation tested Buffett's nerves and his health. Eventually, a settlement was reached, and Buffett was named to a panel on corporate transparency. Meanwhile, Susie found joy in music, and Warren stayed focused on his goals, never letting anything distract him. In 1975, Buffett met Kay Graham, a smart and driven woman who became a big part of his life. She ran the Washington Post and was both confident and insecure. Buffett helped her grow, pushing her to meet Charlie Munger and take control of her own future. He also took on her son, Don, and even gave him control over his shares. Buffett moved into Kay's home, even though he dressed differently than she liked. He made peace with it, saying he'd dress like Don. Kay struggled with her confidence, but Buffett helped her stand on her own. She eventually left, showing her strength. At a big meeting, Kay made an impression, and Buffett stayed calm even as his business struggled. He kept buying stocks, believing in the long-term value. He also helped Kay buy newspapers, teaching her patience. Through it all, Buffett grew closer to Kay, finding joy in helping her. He stayed true to himself, even in a world of fancy dinners and expensive choices. In 1975, Buffett saw Geico's stock at a rock-bottom price, like a chance to buy a sports car. He wanted to meet Jack Byrne, the new manager, to see if he could turn the company around. Buffett called Katharine Graham to set up the meeting. At her home, he told Don Graham it was risky, but Geico had potential. Byrne arrived, red-faced and energetic, and Buffett grilled him about his plans. He wanted to know if Byrne was calm or clueless. Buffett decided Byrne had the skills Geico needed. The next day, Buffett bought 500,000 shares, risking everything. His presence gave Byrne leverage. He met with Salomons Gutfreund, offering to buy the whole deal if needed. Salomon agreed to underwrite a big offering. Buffett's backup bid helped sell the stock, which then quadrupled. Geico still needed changes, but Byrne fought hard, even threatening to cancel policies. He became a hero, reshaping the company with focus and discipline. Buffett saw a leader in Byrne and believed in his ability to save the company. Geico survived, and Buffett's investment paid off. Warren's wife, Susie, felt stuck in their marriage, longing for more than just being a rich man's wife. She wanted to sing, to be seen, to live her own life. But Warren didn't get it. He wanted her to stay home and keep things simple. She started spending more time in San Francisco, finding freedom and purpose. Warren let her go, even though their lives grew apart. When she finally left, he was heartbroken. He called her every day, crying. She stayed away, though she thought about coming back. Meanwhile, she pushed Warren to find someone else. He met Astrid, a kind, hard-working woman who moved in and took care of him. Warren started to feel better. Susie missed him, but he had to move on. He began writing his annual letter, trying to feel useful again. He reached out to Carol Loomis for help. He was lonely, but he kept going. Warren bought the Buffalo Evening News, hoping it would be his dream newspaper. But running it was hard. He fought with unions and lost a big legal battle, which hurt the paper's money. The paper kept losing money, and Warren was really sad. He almost gave up, but he didn't want to look weak. He kept fighting, even as the losses got worse. Meanwhile, his friend Charlie Munger had eye problems from surgery, and Warren's marriage to Susie had ended. Things got better when the paper started making money again, and the rival newspaper folded. Warren and Charlie kept their strict rules, not sharing profits with workers. After the paper turned around, Warren moved on to bigger investments. His wealth grew, and he became more confident in his business style. He stayed true to his values, bought only what he understood, and focused on long-term growth. His partnership with Charlie deepened, and he started thinking about the future of his company. His son chose music over business, and Warren let him go his own way. At 50, Warren's life changed when his wife Susie chose a safer act for a New York show, which made him happier than her original plan. She used the performance to connect with people, not to show off. Meanwhile, Warren's son Howie moved to California, worked at See's Candies, and eventually lived with Buffett's friend Dan Grossman. Warren helped Howie buy a farm, treating it like a business, not a family project. He gave his kids Berkshire stock without explaining, trusting they'd learn its value. He preferred giving to charity over passing down wealth, inspired by people like Peter Kiewit, who gave back to society. Warren saw money as a tool, either to grow or to give away. He promised to give it all away after he died, but his friends worried about how he'd handle his wealth. His family had a history of loss, and he wanted to live and work as long as possible. In 1981, he created a way for shareholders to direct donations, learning more about giving. He also looked for a partner to share his wealth, eventually finding Rose Blumkin, a tough, resourceful woman who had built her own business. She believed in hard work and the middle class, and Warren saw in her a kindred spirit. Warren Buffett bought Mrs. B's store for a big price, letting her family stay in charge. She wanted control and cash, not stock, and Buffett respected that. He trusted her word more than banks, never stepping in. She loved the freedom, but her grandsons pushed back, arguing with her. Buffett stayed neutral, not taking sides. She felt lonely and betrayed, even fighting with the city. Finally, she called Warren, wanting to come back. He offered her money, but with a rule to stop her from competing. She signed, happy to be with her family again. Meanwhile, Warren's sister Susie gave to artists and helped during the AIDS crisis, even as she struggled with her own doubts. At Berkshire, Warren shut down a failing textile plant, hurting workers but knowing the market had left them behind. He focused on his business, even as his family life got messy. Over time, Berkshire's insurance companies turned around, helped by smart people like Ajit Jain. Deals flooded in, and the 1980s became a time of big growth. Warren's insurance business was in trouble. He brought in new people to fix it, and slowly things started to turn around. By 1985, the business was working better, and Ajit Jain joined. Ajit was tough and smart, just like Buffett. Together they made the insurance companies strong again. Prices went up, and more business came in. The 1980s became a time of big deals, funded by debt. Meanwhile, Buffett's kids learned about money from watching him. They knew debt was risky, and that lesson helped them later. Susie, Warren's sister, helped people in many ways, even when she struggled. Her life was full of work and charity. When her nephew died from drugs, it hit her hard, but Buffett stayed focused. He kept growing Berkshire, sharing his ideas with shareholders in plain, friendly ways. He proved that smart thinking could beat the market. In 1984, Buffett wrote an article that challenged the idea that markets are always efficient. His smart, funny writing made him a hero to investors. At the same time, Wall Street started using new ideas to take bigger risks. Buffett and Munger laughed at this, calling it nonsense. They stayed true to their way of thinking, buying good companies, avoiding debt, and growing slowly. By 1986, Buffett had to choose between staying a partner or becoming a full-time CEO. He chose the latter, even though it meant giving up some freedom. He stayed simple and focused, never losing his values. He also learned from his father's boss, Scott Kiewit, who taught him how to run a business with honesty. Buffett bought a plane, not for luxury but for control. He started hanging out with rich people, even the Reagans, though he didn't like the debt. When Gutfreund asked for help saving Salomon, Buffett stepped in with a big bet. He saw opportunity and trusted his judgment. In 1987, Buffett's sister Doris made a bad investment and lost everything, leaving her feeling abandoned. Warren refused to help, fearing she'd be seen as a failure. He eventually arranged payments from his trust, not as a gift, but as a controlled plan. Meanwhile, Salomon Brothers collapsed after Black Monday, and Buffett tried to save employees' stock options but failed. He realized his influence was limited, and the board didn't listen. The market recovered, but Buffett felt defeated, knowing he'd lost a chance to fight for what he believed. He grew more cautious, less willing to battle, and more focused on long-term value. He and Munger stopped opposing the board, accepting they couldn't change everything. The events left Buffett bruised but proud of his principles, even as he faced the limits of his power. Buffett found himself stuck at Salomon, seen as a passive board member. He had invested because of Gutfreund, but now he didn't like how things were going. He stayed, hoping things would get better. Meanwhile, he owed money to Katharine Graham and got a gift of Coca-Cola, which he loved. He studied Coke's cash flow and decided to buy a lot of shares, making Berkshire shareholders happy. His actions moved the market, so he got special permission to keep his trades secret. By the end of the year, Berkshire owned a big chunk of Coke, worth over $1 billion. He also joined Coke's board and bought a fancy jet. He helped his son campaign and stayed close to the women in his life, buying them jewelry and getting a book that made him think about Salomon. He started investing in special deals with CEOs, which made some people think he was protecting them. He felt the weight of his choices, but stayed true to his values. Buffett had become a king among Wall Street insiders, but he stayed friendly with management, not the raiders. He made special deals that seemed like favors, but were really calculated bets. Only Gillette paid off, giving Berkshire $5.5 billion. U.S. Air was a disaster, and Buffett admitted it was. Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger were unhappy at Salomon Brothers. Bonuses were going up, but profits were down. They saw traders making tons of money without being held responsible. Buffett tried to stop the unfair pay system, but it just made some traders even richer. He was angry that some got huge raises while others didn't get punished for bad performance. He voted against the bonuses, but they ignored him. People at Salomon were mad that Buffett, a billionaire, called them greedy. Buffett saw Salomon as a casino with a restaurant front, and the traders were the real risk takers. The pay system was causing problems inside the company. Buffett wanted to sell his shares, but Gutfreund wouldn't let him. He was stuck with his investment, having put in $700 million and his reputation. He was in Nevada, relaxed, when he got a call about the crisis at Salomon. He was worried about the legal issues and the damage to the firm's reputation. Buffett had to decide whether to keep his stake or walk away, even though it would cost him financially and emotionally. He was torn between his values and the reality of the situation. Buffett was in Omaha, half asleep, when Gutfreund called with bad news. Salomon was falling apart, and the Fed was pushing for answers. Buffett had no real power, but Gutfreund needed him to step in. He agreed, even though he knew the firm was doomed. He pushed for honesty, even if it meant naming people. He fought to protect those who did the right thing, even when he knew he was losing. He flew to New York, arriving in chaos. The stock wasn't trading, and people were panicking. He read the press release, which said Gutfreund was stepping down. He made a decision and talked to Corrigan, who wanted a full cleanup. Buffett agreed, even though it risked everything. He interviewed candidates, looking for someone honest and strong. He had just returned from Asia, where Morgan led the investment banking group. He was seen as ethical, but the firm was in trouble. Buffett met with traders who begged him to take a job. Meriwether refused to resign, and Gutfrode demanded money. Buffett refused to sign a deal. Meriwether finally left, and Buffett felt guilty for putting his name in the press. The next day, the government banned Salomon from bidding. Buffett realized he wasn't saving the firm, he was leading it to collapse. Buffett faced a huge crisis at Salomon Brothers. The firm was on the edge of collapse, and the government had banned it from bidding in auctions. Without help, it would fail and cause a financial disaster. Buffett tried to stop the ban but couldn't. He knew he was the last hope. He decided to fight, even though it meant risking everything: his reputation, his future, and his life. He asked Brady for help, which put him in debt. Brady finally agreed to let Salomon bid for its own accounts. Buffett took on the interim chairman role and led the firm's desperate efforts to survive. He worked with Maughan and the traders under huge pressure. At the same time, he found out Salomon had lied to regulators and covered up mistakes. He was angry but pushed for honesty. He got the board to punish old leaders and brought in Olson to help. Buffett waived legal rights to protect the government and promised to tell the truth. He prepared for tough testimony, showing his values. He believed in doing the right thing, even when it was hard. Buffett faced a huge crisis at Salomon as the scandal grew worse. He pushed for punishing old leaders and brought in Olson, a lawyer who shared his values. Buffett gave up his legal rights to protect the government and told the truth in front of Congress. He admitted the firm had hidden things but defended its culture. Salomon restructured its debt, hid some trades, and almost faced charges. Buffett's anger grew when the Sternlight letter was ignored, and he demanded real change. He cut legal fees for ex-leaders, fought to keep Salomon as a primary dealer, and stayed up late, working hard. Even as chaos spread, he focused on Berkshire and buying a shoe company. He met with prosecutors, tried to stop charges, and stressed the need for a new culture. The stress, isolation, and sleepless nights weighed on him, but he stayed calm, driven by his principles. Buffett took a long weekend on a quiet island near Seattle, a place he loved for its calm. He stayed in a small guest house with no toilet paper, which confused him. He ended up using a gas station bathroom. There, he met Bill Gates, who was curious about business. They talked about IBM and Microsoft, and Gates suggested Buffett buy both. Buffett was intrigued but still unsure about tech. Later, they both said focus was key to success. Buffett bought Microsoft stock, though he still didn't trust tech much. He invited Gates to a Buffett Group meeting where they discussed how companies fail to stay ahead. Gates predicted Kodak's decline. Buffett left the island with a new view on technology. Now, everyone wanted to talk to Gates. Buffett and Gates joined the Buffett Group on a boat, becoming regulars. Buffett's fame brought his wife Susie into the spotlight, which she didn't want. She struggled to balance her life while running the foundation and managing family. Her health was failing, and she was overextending herself. Buffett also put his sons on the foundation board, planning for them to lead after him. His son Peter felt like an outsider, especially after his divorce. But Peter found his own path, building a music career. Meanwhile, Buffett and Gates grew closer, sharing ideas. Buffett also found joy in bridge, meeting Sharon Osbourne, a brilliant player. He played every night, even ignoring a flying bat. He made it to a world championship, proving he could still compete. Buffett and Gates grew closer, sharing ideas and playing bridge. Buffett even helped Gates take the game seriously, sending Sharon Osbourne to Seattle to coach him. Their friendship deepened when Bill and Melinda got engaged. Buffett planned to attend their wedding in Hawaii, choosing it over a birthday party for Charlie Munger. At the wedding, he hosted with humor but grew impatient when Munger was late. Buffett's loyalty meant he often had to choose sides, hurting some while pleasing others. In Dublin, he hosted his friends at the Kildare Club, dined with leaders, and stayed true to his circle. He debated wealth and giving, thinking about how to use his money for good. He shifted from population control to reproductive rights, believing in the ovarian lottery, helping those born into worse chances. After returning from Ireland, he and Susie traveled to China, where he reflected on fate and met the premier. He saw the Three Gorges Dam and felt the weight of his beliefs. Back home, Buffett kept investing, buying Coca-Cola and GAEO, but stayed focused on safety. He stayed out of tech, avoiding risky bets. Berkshire's stock soared, making him a billionaire. He worried about copycat funds and vowed to protect his investors. Buffett decided to create new B shares to stop other funds from driving up Berkshire's stock price. These shares were worth much less than the regular A shares, and he openly said he wouldn't buy them himself. This kept the price low and made Berkshire more popular. Soon, thousands of new investors joined. He moved the annual meeting to a big shopping area in Nebraska, turning it into a place where rich people gathered. At the same time, the world was changing with the rise of the internet and computers. Buffett stayed away from the fast-paced, risky world of tech and finance. He helped a trader double down on a losing bet but stayed cautious. He and Munger worried about the dangers of hedge funds, especially after long-term capital management collapsed. Buffett saw the risks and stayed true to his values, even when others were taking big chances. He tried to save the fund, but missed out on a chance to buy it, which taught him the dangers of over-leveraging and the importance of sticking to his principles. Susie filled their home with art, souvenirs, and treasures, creating a lively but chaotic space. Her work with AIDS patients and care for her sister Dottie, who died of cancer, left her deeply affected. When Warren's mother Layla died on his 66th birthday, the family grieved, complicated by old tensions. Layla had been harsh, and Warren had avoided her, preferring Rose Blumkin. After her death, Warren felt the waste of their relationship, and his sisters inherited Berkshire stock, changing their lives. Susie's generosity left Buffett conflicted, especially after she gave large gifts to friends, which he didn't approve of. Their will discussions revealed their differing views on money. Buffett made the final call, but he softened on giving his children money, leaving them a reasonable share. Howie used his gifts to buy farms, while Buffett joined Coca-Cola's board, admiring Goizueta but wary of his ambitious goals. Howie challenged Coca-Cola's practices but eventually left. Goizueta's death shocked everyone, and Ivester took over, a different kind of leader. Buffett stayed involved, but the experience made him more cautious. Buffett liked Ivester and wanted him to succeed. A mechanic's son who had risen through determination. Ivester was an analytical numbers guy. Under Goizueta, he had made Buffett rich. Buffett blamed Goizueta for the earnings trickery. Coca-Cola traded at $70, BRK at $48,000. As the market rose, Buffett found it harder to invest. He bought NetJets for $725 million, sold Indefensible, and became a customer. He also bought General Re for $22 billion, swapping 20% of Berkshire for the insurer. This deal shocked investors, who wondered if Buffett thought BRK was overvalued. Buffett said it wasn't a market call, but investors doubted. He kept Coca-Cola, even though its stock was overpriced. He didn't sell because he liked it and couldn't afford to. He bought Mid-American Energy, a utility to. Buffett, now one of the richest people in the world, started facing a lot of criticism. Tech stocks were doing well, but his Berkshire shares were falling. People mocked him, calling him a has-been. He felt hurt but stayed calm. A big deal he made, General Re, turned out to be a fraud, costing Berkshire millions. Coca-Cola's stock also dropped, hurting his reputation. He kept trusting his principles, even when things got tough. At Christmas, he was proud of his kids. Peter was a musician, Howie a farmer, and Susie Jr. a philanthropist. Life was hard, but he stayed true to himself. The public attacked him, spreading rumors that he was buying his own stock. He was angry but didn't fight back. He denied the rumors in a press release, but the stock kept falling. He admitted his performance was bad but didn't change his approach. His health got worse with a kidney stone and the stress of aging. He faced his father's death and felt the weight of time. Still, he prepared for the shareholder meeting, knowing it was his most important event. He stayed focused, even when the world seemed to move on without him. His team worked hard, treated like heroes, protecting him from the chaos. The meeting had fewer people, but Buffett refused to talk about tech, calling it dangerous. When Munger joked about the internet, the room laughed. Buffett felt old and some blamed him for poor results. After the meeting, he signed autographs, hosted parties, and reviewed General Rhee's bad results. He finally agreed to a colonoscopy, found a polyp, had surgery, and grew a beard. He joked about his health, staying strong despite everything. Buffett saw the dot-com crash as a chance to buy cheap, solid companies. He bought insurance firms, jewelers, and makers of bricks and boots. Even with all that, he still had billions left. He warned people the internet was a trap, a way for crooks to steal money. He told his shareholders the market was too high and wouldn't buy unless it dropped a lot. At the 2001 meeting, he showed a graph proving the market was way overvalued. People were surprised, but impressed. He stayed calm, even as the stock market fell and his age made him feel old. Meanwhile, Kay Graham, the newspaper boss, had a fall and died. Buffett was there but couldn't help. He stayed strong, still the firebolt. Kay died suddenly in June 2006. Buffett was in Boise with his daughter and her husband when the news came. He had never been able to handle his wife's pain. When doctors said Kay needed more help, Buffett called his family to come. He couldn't bear to go to the hospital, but Susie Jr. insisted. He went, found Kay barely breathing, and broke down with Dawn. The family returned to Omaha, and Buffett couldn't speak at her funeral. He stayed at home, working hard, distracted by bridge or flying helicopters. He talked to students about his mistakes, including not buying FNMA stock, which cost him $5 billion. He spoke of his 20 punches philosophy, making big, lasting decisions. A huge crowd gathered for her funeral at the Washington National Cathedral, filled with politicians, journalists, and friends. Buffett sat with Bill Gates watching the service, feeling the weight of loss. He never returned to Kay's house. Buffett returned to Nebraska alone, throwing himself into work, reading, and distractions to avoid grief. He played bridge, surfed the internet, and flew helicopters on his computer. A week later, he broke down, crying uncontrollably on the phone, feeling the weight of his loss. He regretted not being at Kay's funeral and imagined scenarios where, after Kay's death, Buffett tried to push away his grief by working harder than ever. He read, played bridge, and even flew helicopters from his computer. But grief caught up with him, and he broke down in tears on the phone. He felt lost without her and imagined all the things he could have done differently. Then came 9/11. Buffett stayed calm, dressed in his usual suit, and even warned about terrorism risks before it happened. He knew the stock market would crash and prepared to speak about it. When it did, he stayed steady, saying he might buy stocks if they dropped enough. His honesty made people trust him, even as Berkshire lost billions. He used the crisis to find new opportunities, buying struggling companies and speaking out against unfair tax breaks for the rich. He fought for a fair system where wealth was taxed, not passed down. He also changed how companies handled stock options, pushing for transparency and fairness. His actions inspired others, even big companies like Microsoft. Buffett's voice grew louder, and his influence spread. He pushed for change, even when others ignored him. He stayed in control, always reading the paper, always moving forward. Buffett kept reading the papers every day, even when he was in Africa. His team set up an internet connection in his room for $500 a day. He joked about the usual routine of burgers and fries. The Buffetts were heading to Africa after their annual trip to New York, which always came after the shareholder meeting. In 2003, as the meeting approached, Berkshire bought Clayton Homes. It was another typical deal for Buffett, buying cheap assets after the Enron crash. Low interest rates had made banks lend too much, pushing people to buy more stuff. But when banks started selling loans to investors, the risk got passed around. Buffett saw the danger and warned about it. He called derivatives dangerous, but no one listened. He had already warned about the mobile home industry before. Now, he pushed for reform, hiring experts to study the business. He also bought PetroChina, his first big foreign investment, and shared his ideas with shareholders. Even though some were upset, Buffett stayed focused on his plan. The Clayton deal was tough, but he stuck to his price. In the end, he won, proving his strength and belief in his vision. Buffett fought hard to get the Clayton Homes deal done. A rival bidder tried to push in last minute, and Buffett made a tough choice to delay the vote if they paid him extra. The press criticized him, calling him greedy. He saw through the rival's offer and stuck to his plan. Meanwhile, a union tried to stop the deal, and Buffett felt like he was being forced into a bad situation. After a long court battle, the deal finally went through, but the home business was still struggling. Buffett tried to fix it by buying bad loans. In 2003, he became the most powerful business person, proud and focused. But his life changed when Susie got cancer. She hid her illness, but it was serious. Buffett supported her through surgery and treatment, even as he struggled with fear and worry. The cancer had no clear cause, and Susie grew weaker. Buffett stayed by her side, determined to face everything. Buffett flew to San Francisco the day before Susie's surgery, putting family first. He stayed by her side, waiting nervously for updates. The doctors said the cancer hadn't spread, but she needed radiation. Susie lost weight, and Buffett joined her on a strict diet, joking but feeling the stress. He fought with the press, especially the Wall Street Journal, and stayed close to Sharon and his daughter. He slept in a storage unit to avoid disturbing Susie, and spent time with Sharon, crying on her shoulder. Susie stayed isolated, only seeing her daughter and caretakers. Buffett learned about radiation and treatment, hiding his worry. He used distractions like movies and Arnold Schwarzenegger. He talked carefully with friends and still hoped Susie could sing again. He needed help but only admitted it to his daughter. Susie resisted radiation, fearing pain, and they argued for hours. She finally agreed in December, and Buffett got involved in her care, even flying to Buffalo to open a Geico center. Buffett worried about their future giving plans, fearing the Buffett Foundation wasn't ready. He considered giving to Gates instead, but still expected Susie to decide. He started thinking of a backup plan. Susie grew sad and considered stopping treatment, but Buffett tried to convince her. The treatment had breaks for holidays, which upset him. He went to a party, performed stand-up, and returned to see Susie, who was still weak but strong. She kept walking and staying active, needing care but wanting family. Buffett stayed with her, showing his values in action. Buffett spent 2004 juggling Susie's treatment with his business. He took her to Johnny Rockets, studied radiation, and stayed close. But as she improved, he grew irritable, pulled away, and let business take over. Sharon left for Antarctica, and he felt more alone. He wrote letters, advised CEOs, and dealt with legal issues. He pushed for change at Berkshire and Jayco but felt stuck. His relationship with Coca-Cola soured, but he stayed for the others. He was tired, trapped between. Warren Buffett faced a big fight over his role at Coca-Cola. Some investors said he shouldn't be on the board because he owned Coke stock and bought its products, which could be a conflict. Buffett was angry, calling the critics irrational. But the pressure kept coming, and even some big groups like CalPERS turned against him. Buffett stayed on the board, trying to fix Coke's problems, but the situation got worse. At the shareholder meeting, people protested, and Buffett felt his influence was damaged. Meanwhile, Susie's cancer didn't return, and she wanted to attend the meeting in Omaha. Buffett was worried about her, but also focused on the event, which became a huge, chaotic celebration. He spoke non-stop, even as his voice tired. The meeting ended with Buffett and Munger as superheroes in a funny movie. Susie arrived, looking stronger, and Buffett kept pushing forward, even as he felt worn out and frustrated. After the chaotic shareholder meeting, Buffett and Munger stayed for hours, answering questions and eating sweets, even as the crowd got wild. Buffett loved the attention, while Munger was tired but kept going. Meanwhile, Susie was struggling with her health, barely getting out of bed and relying on pills. Her son watched over her, limiting her activities. At the Gottesman dinner, she managed to attend but was exhausted. Buffett wanted her to do an interview, where she praised him and mentioned moving to San Francisco. The interview hinted at her seeing Astrid as a manager. She then traveled to France, met Bono, and was deeply moved. Back in Omaha, she tried to see everyone but grew too tired. Buffett was proud of his daughter's knitting shop, comparing it to his own business habits. His son's show, Spirit, The Seventh Fire, was a big effort, with Buffett helping but letting Peter raise most of the money. The show had cultural themes Warren didn't fully understand, but he was proud of his son's success. Susie then went to Laguna with her grandchildren, indulging them as usual. She was exhausted, but ready for the next trip. Susie, Warren's wife, had been struggling with her health, but she was still lively and full of energy when they reunited at Herbert Allen's ranch in Cody, Wyoming. She was cheerful, even suggesting a vote on the upcoming election. But during dinner, she suddenly collapsed, and Warren rushed to get her pills. He realized she had likely had a stroke. The family waited anxiously as paramedics arrived, and Warren was getting tired of the spotlight. He missed the quiet of his work and wanted to focus on Berkshire again. He let the board run without him, added Bill Gates to the board, and started a whistleblower line. The market was wild, and Berkshire ended 2004 with a lot of cash, not profits. In 2005, he bought small companies and Pacificorp, seeing value in its clean energy and good management. He kept doubting the dollar, warned about derivatives, and learned from his mistakes. In 2006, he shocked everyone by saying he'd give away $37 billion to charity. His kids and sisters supported him, even though they didn't expect it. He gave to the Gates Foundation and set up his own, not naming it after himself. He believed in helping those without luck and stayed grounded in his simple life with Astrid and his family. He worried about who would run Berkshire after him, knowing no one could fully replace him. When the financial crisis hit in 2007, he stayed true to his values, buying opportunities and staying simple. He never changed. In 2007, the stock market crashed, and the housing crisis started. Buffett watched banks fail and people lose everything. He stayed focused on value and risk, buying cheap stocks and index funds. He believed in long-term growth and never changed his principles. As the crisis got worse, he found opportunities in the credit market and mortgages. He told students that getting rich quick wasn't the goal. He gave talks to college students across the U.S., sharing his lessons. He met them in Omaha, taking them to stores and eating with them. He became the richest man in the world in 2008, but he still dressed casually and stayed humble. He taught the same lessons he learned from his life: work with people you like, avoid risk, and stay focused. He stayed curious, always looking for new ideas and people. Even as he aged, he kept learning and growing. He saw his life as a snowball, always rolling forward, never stopping. In 2005, a big company called Toys R Us was bought for a huge amount of money by private investors. Buffett watched this closely, thinking about how risky it was. He had always believed in investing wisely, not chasing quick wins. This deal reminded him that even strong companies can fall if they lose focus. It made him more careful with his choices, always looking for businesses with real value. He became more selective, choosing companies with strong leaders and lasting advantages. This moment helped shape his approach, making him more patient and steady. Warren Buffett was born in 1930 in Omaha, Nebraska, into a family that ran a grocery store. His father was strict, his mother caring. From a young age, he showed a talent for business, helping at the store and learning about money. The Great Depression left a deep mark on him, teaching him the value of hard work and saving. These early years built the foundation for his future success. He was determined, even if he wasn't always sure of himself. His family life, though sometimes difficult, gave him the drive and character he needed to become the man he would be. Warren Buffett started his career after college by moving to New York and working at Buffett Falk, where he quickly earned respect for his smart mind and hard work. He began investing his own money, focusing on buying stocks that were undervalued and had strong fundamentals. His early bets, like in Geico, showed he could spot value where others missed it. He faced pressure to follow Wall Street trends, but he stuck to his values, choosing long-term growth over quick profits. His belief in compounding and understanding a business's true worth guided his choices. He learned patience and discipline, even when others doubted him. These early years built his confidence and helped shape the principled, thoughtful investor he would become. In 1958, Buffett's father, Howard, got sick, and the family struggled. Buffett kept working on his investments, even as his father's health worsened. He managed his father's business and dealt with complex partnerships, taking on more risk. He stayed true to his values, buying stocks he believed in even when others didn't. By 1962, his investments had grown to over $1 million, and he showed more confidence in his decisions. When the market crashed, his partnership lost money, but it still beat the market. In 1963, he helped save a struggling company, making a big profit and changing its name. He moved to a new office and kept his focus on his work. His personal life became more distant as he poured himself into his business. A major loss in 1965, his friend Howard L. Clark forced him to face his emotions. He grew more focused and strategic, learning to balance his work and his values. His journey showed how his patience, principles, and steady approach built his success. In 1969, Buffett faced a big challenge when blue chip stamp stock split and then jumped to $25. His partner, Charlie Munger, was confused, and Buffett worried he'd lose control of the company. He decided to buy more shares, even though it was risky. It kept him up at night and made some people doubt him, including a friend named Danny Cowan. Buffett learned to trust his judgment and think long-term. He also started sharing more with his partners, which helped them understand his plans. A deal with See's Candies taught him to value quality over price and think creatively about taxes. These choices made him more confident and strategic. He also focused more on his home life, though it became more lonely as he worked harder. His decisions showed he was growing, blending patience with boldness. In 1983, Buffett made a big bet by buying Nebraska Furniture Mart, run by a strong-willed woman named Rose Blumkin. She had built her business from the ground up and sold her shares for $120 each. Buffett refused to pay that price, thinking it too high. She called him cheap, but he stuck to his plan. The deal worked out well, and it made him more confident in his business sense. It also taught him to trust his instincts, even when others doubted him. Over time, he became more strategic and better at communicating with his partners. But some lost trust in him, and he grew more isolated. In 1985, the SEC questioned his stock purchases, leading to fines and a permanent injunction. He kept buying Wesco shares, believing in their long-term value. This cost him reputation and trust, but made him bolder and more focused on the future. By 1990, the S&L industry collapsed, and Santa Barbara was seized. Buffett's choices shaped his legacy, making him more patient, more strategic, and more determined. He learned to trust his vision, even when the world around him didn't. In 1994, Buffett spoke at Berkshire's meeting, where Munger called out twaddle and bullshit in 2001. Buffett noticed flaws in models that ignored real market risks, like big crashes. He started hedging in 1982, warning about the dangers of futures. In 1985, Berkshire bought Scott Fetzer for $320 million, making $1.03 billion by $2,000. He chose long-term gains, even if it meant paying more taxes. He avoided selling before tax reform, taking a big hit. He valued being conservative, even if it meant missing out on benefits. His Salomon Brothers investment was like a bond, not a stock. He faced conflicts, but tried to stay neutral. When the firm had problems, he stepped back. He saw the risks of crashes and tried to hedge, but the system was flawed. He made tough choices, even when it meant being alone. He learned to be patient, bold, and strategic. He trusted his instincts, even when others doubted him. He was bruised but proud of his success. In 1991, Buffett found himself in a tough spot at Salomon Brothers. He wasn't in charge, but he was on the board. The firm had broken rules by bidding over the 35% limit for treasury auctions, and a trader did it without permission. Buffett tried to hide it, but the government found out. He felt stuck. Telling the truth could ruin the firm and him. Pressure came from the boss and the law. Buffett chose to stay neutral, even as Salomon fell apart. He fired people, changed the culture, and tied bonuses to performance. It cost him his reputation and sleep, but he learned to act with honesty, even when it meant being alone. In 1998, another crisis hit when long-term capital management collapsed. Buffett had once admired the firm, but now he saw the risks. He had warned about their risky bets, but stayed quiet. When the fund failed, he spoke out, calling it a disaster. He faced criticism but stood by his views. The collapse made him more cautious, teaching him to value stability over quick wins. By 2000, Buffett bought 2 internet companies, betting on the dot-com boom. But when the market crashed, he warned about over-leveraging and unrealistic assumptions. He lost some respect but grew wiser. He stayed true to his values, even as others chased quick profits. His life became a mix of success and sacrifice, guided by wisdom and humility. In 2003, Buffett bought Clayton Homes for $50 million, giving Berkshire control. It helped the company survive tough times and gave Buffett access to cheap money. Some shareholders disagreed, even taking the case to court. The court sided with Berkshire. Buffett also faced criticism for his views on the dollar and his donations, which some saw as political. He defended his choices, believing in long-term value. His daughter Susie died in 2004, and he honored her by giving millions to causes she cared about. He kept investing in businesses he knew, even as others chased quick money. He stayed focused on value, not fame. His life showed he was more than a businessman. He was a man of principle. He kept his family close, balanced work and home, and stayed true to himself. His success came with sacrifice, and his choices reflected wisdom and humility. So, what are the key lessons from this book? First, the power of patience and discipline. Warren Buffett didn't chase quick wins. He built his success over decades, staying focused on what he understood. He believed in the long run, and that's where his greatest strength lay. Another key lesson is the importance of knowing your limits. Buffett stayed within his circle of competence, avoiding investments he didn't fully understand. He didn't try to be an expert in everything. Instead, he mastered what he knew and trusted his judgment. Also, simplicity is a strength. Buffett's life and business philosophy were built on clear thinking and straightforward values. He avoided complexity and hype, choosing to invest in real businesses with real earnings. And finally, the value of relationships. Buffett's friendship with Charlie Munger was central to his success. Their mutual respect and intellectual partnership helped them see the world in new ways. Surround yourself with people who challenge and support you, because great ideas often come from collaboration. These lessons aren't just about money, they're about living a life of purpose, integrity, and long-term thinking.